Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jamal. I hope you guys are all doing well. Now, today is finally the day where I am going to attempt to swap the heads on my car, put a new intake manifold on it, swap the throttle body, and put new injectors in it. So, I'd be lying to you guys if I said I wasn't nervous because I've never really done anything this in-depth before. The farthest I've been into it was I changed my water pump and I've taken the intake manifold off before. But I've never done the heads before, so this is going to be a first time for me. It's going to be a learning experience for me as well, so y'all take it easy on me because I know I'm going to mess things up for sure. But without any more further ado, let's go ahead and get started and see what we're working with by going over the parts first. So here's kind of a general overview of the parts we're working with. So this right here is a tube that's going to go from one of the heads to the intake, cold intake. Then we have our exhaust manifold gaskets. We have these. This is for the coolant bypass pipe, the steam pipe. Those are gaskets for that. These are Egr gaskets. We won't use these because we don't have that because I have long tube headers. We've got valve cover gaskets. We've got new spark plugs. We've got the injectors. These are Siemens Deca 60-pound injectors. A lot of y'all might be wondering why I'm doing injectors. I think my injectors are almost maxed out on the current setup with just a cam. So I decided to go ahead and put some bigger injectors in it to make sure that I'm kind of benefiting from these mods I'm about to do. These right here are head gaskets. Then we have our heads here. I bought these used. Got them for a pretty good deal. They're PRC stage 2.5 heads. They already have 660 lift springs in them, so rather than trying to swap mine over, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw these on because they're the same springs I have. I have Brian Tooley springs. These are PRC springs, or PAC springs, but they should be fine. So there's that. Next up, we have our Fast 92 intake manifold. You guys have already seen this. I did an episode where I painted it, and then we also have an LS2 throttle body to make sure we're gonna need a bigger throttle body because I think the stock one's a 78 millimeter. It's a 92 millimeter opening, so we want to make sure that we're getting the benefit of the bigger intake manifold. And then here's just a bunch of parts. These right here are different bolts for the valley cover because you have to have smaller bolt heads in order to make sure that the new intake manifold sits flush. This is a harness to make sure that the throttle body cable hooks up to this LS2 throttle body. And we have other miscellaneous stuff, bolts. I had to get new bolts for this LS2 throttle body because the stock ones are too short. So you had to get new bolts for this stuff. If y'all are like kind of curious on all the stuff that I bought, or you need like part numbers or something, just comment on the video and I'll try to reply and tell y'all what I used. But I think that's pretty much it. I'm sure I'm going to forget some stuff, but I'll just kind of talk about it along the way. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is pop the hood, jack the car up, and drain the coolant. Alright guys, so I got the car jacked up, ready to drain the coolant. Now, one thing I did do before I start this project, since I do plan on spending some time with it, and just to make sure that nothing happens, I disconnected the negative battery terminal from here. Like I said, just to make sure, it's an extra step, just to make sure that nothing happens while I'm working on the car. So, that being said, we're going to go ahead and drain the coolant, and then while I'm down there, I'm going to undo the clamps for the long tube headers, just so that when it is time to pull them off, I can undo the headers and kind of rotate them out of the way to get the heads out of the car. So I did get a bucket here to try to collect some of the coolant because it hasn't been in there long, because honestly the cam has only been in like 6,000 miles now, and that's the last time the coolant was changed. And also did the water pump when I put fresh coolant in, so I want to try to reuse some of the coolant. So I'm going to use this bucket to try to catch some of the coolant that comes out, or most of the coolant that comes out, hopefully. Okay guys, so I undid the drain valve, and I got the coolant draining right now. I also unscrewed the cap from up here to kind of relieve the pressure to help it drain a lot faster. I'm probably going to jack it up in the back as well, just to kind of level the car out right now, so that it drains all the coolant. So I'm going to set the camera down and do that now. Through a jack in the back, the car is a lot level now, and the coolant is continuing to drain. Now, last time I did this, the water pump, the coolant took forever to drain, so this is gonna take a while, obviously. And while that's happening, I guess we can start pulling off the fuel rail covers. So I'm gonna set that down. And then also another thing when you do is pull that intake off. So instead of aftermarket intake, for me it's really easy. The stock one's not too bad. I don't exactly remember the procedure, but I think it's in my video where I changed the intake manifold out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. I'm gonna set this on a tripod so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. Oh yeah, another thing I forgot to mention is you should probably cover your fenders with something because you're going to be leaning over them a lot. You want to make sure you don't scratch them, but I'm just going to try to be careful with mine, so hopefully we'll be alright. The coolant continues to drain. I don't know if you can still hear it, but the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start pulling the coil packs off. So these right here, the spark plug wires, mine are aftermarket, so they should come off pretty easy. I know the stock ones are a pain and they'll probably break when you try to pull them off, so that's something just to be aware of. If you are doing this, I would recommend changing the spark plug wires because it really doesn't matter what you do, one of those is going to break. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling them off. So I've pulled all the spark plug wires off from here, and the next thing I'm going to do is disconnect this connector like that, and then this whole bracket with the coil packs comes out. So this screw here, this screw here, this screw here. I believe those are the only three holding it on. Oh, and this screw here. So I'm gonna set the camera down and take those off. Whoops. There's one in the back that's holding it on too. Okay guys, I have, as you can see, sparkle wires there. I've gotten the coil pack bracket with all the coil packs off of the heads now. I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a belt off and then pull the alternator off so that I can kind of continue. And then once I get the alternator off, I'm going to start the process for pulling the actual intake manifold off the car. So that should be fun. Hopefully I remember how to do it. If not, we've got DIYs. That's what DIYs are for. So let's do this. Belt is off. That was just a 15 millimeter. You just turn the what's it called, the belt tensioner in, and to relieve the tension off the belt, and then you can pull it off of the alternator. So should probably take it all the way off, but I'm gonna try to leave it here so that when I put it on, it should be a little bit easier. Should be able to pull the alternator off now. This is a 13 millimeter. Holds this strap on here. Should be completely off of there. Bottom bolt's a 15mm as well. I think that should be it. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the intake manifold off. So in order to do that, we're going to have to undo all these connectors that are connected to the throttle body or the intake manifold. That includes the injectors. So I've undone that. This should come out. These, I believe, you just push in a white clip. Should come out. There's that. Other side's the same way. And then you want to undo these white clips here. And then you want to also undo the fuel injectors, but before we do that, we're going to undo this fuel line here. I can go ahead and pop this off here. See on the other side. There's that. There's that. Also this. I believe that's everything. There is one, I think, coolant line on the other side of the throttle body that has to come off as well. All these connectors I have are so old, they just pop right out. So I'm not too worried about breaking things. In order to undo this line here, you're going to need a fuel line disconnect tool. I got this one from AutoZone. I think it was like $7 or $8, but without this, there's really no way to take that line off. So let me pull this out of the package. I've used it before. Take the intake manifold off. Kind of a pain, honestly. So we're going to undo the clip here. Clip comes off. There is fuel behind this line, so just be aware of that. All right. There it is. There is fuel in there, so try to tilt that up. So one thing we also have to do is undo the line that's connected to the brake booster. Now, these clamps are kind of a pain, so I got this clamp removal tool off of eBay for like 10-15 bucks, I think. These are like a lifesaver. It saves you from having to fight the thing with pliers. You can just kind of use this to lock the clamps down and pull the line off. So I'm going to do that. Boom, right there. Release it. And you can pull this thing right off. Come on. Knee buffing. Alright, that line's off. Alright, so now I'm going to undo the fuel injectors. These little metal clips just pop out, I think. Or they pop in. Just pop them in and pull them out. Awesome. Easy enough. So we're not actually going to take the fuel rail off of the intake because that all comes out as one piece. So that's just going to save us a lot of time there. You know, just pull that off and then you can see we're like fully free from the intake manifold on this side now. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're fully free on this side too. There is one other, I think, sensor back here you gotta undo. Which you just kind of have to reach back there and feel for it. You can undo it. That's all. And then there's a line back here as well that has to come off. That's off of there. And then last but not least, we gotta undo that line that's below the throttle body. The line that's underneath the throttle body actually connects to the coolant crossover pipe. So we're just gonna undo that from here. It looks like we got a visitor. Oh, you got a Mountain Dew, baby. What's up, dude? Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah, that's exactly what I needed. What's up, bro? How are you?
Pretty good, how about you?
Alright, so I finally got a cameraman, so hopefully I can show you guys a little bit more in depth what I'm doing, but hell yeah, dude, you bought all the goods.
Yeah, dude.
Damn, son. Did you bring that in a bag? What is that? I can't really tell what that is. Oh shit, dude.
I thought I had some gloves.
What's up, dude? Awesome. Yeah, I'm just working on trying to get this pipe off the bottom of the, it's a coolant pipe for the throttle body, so I can pull the intake manifold off. So that's what I'm working on. I got my awesome cameraman Casey now. So the intake manifold itself is ready to come off now. It's held on by 10 8mm bolts. There's 2 in the back here you can't see, and then we got 4 up front. So I'm gonna take these 4 off, and then I'll get the 2 in the back with the ratchet wrench. So just gonna go ahead, start undoing these bad boys. Now these bolts here hold that fuel rail on. We don't want to take that off. We just want to pull it all off as one thing. So. You can see that manifold kind of lifted there a little bit. So I know I said I wasn't going to take the fuel rail off, but looks like I'm going to have to, because this last bolt that's behind here is kind of a pain to take out with the fuel rail on. So these are just 4 10mm studs here holding the thing on. And then you just kind of have to pull up gently on the injectors, and you can see some fuel starting to spill out on that side. It should come out. Boom, just like that. Alright, so fuel rail's off. These 2 bolts are undone. There's, I think, 3 total connectors in the back. There's the one that goes from the brake booster, which is undone here. We have a actual sensor back there that you kind of have to reach back there and kind of feel for the clip, pull it up, and disconnect it. And then there's a little tube. I think it's an air tube that you have to disconnect as well. But with those 3 things out, I should be able to lift up on this thing and pull it out. Might have to kind of mess with it a bit there.
vacuum hose is still on the throttle body.
Okay. I thought I had everything disconnected, but I guess not. My little nifty little thing on here that's not so nifty right now. Oh, look at that, dude. Solid. It's out. There she is. Oh man, it wasn't too bad actually. Got the intake manifold off and I kind of cleaned the head up a bit. Normally if you're just changing out the intake manifold, you'd want to cover these ports because anything gets down in there. There's really no way to get it off. It'll eventually make itself to the cylinder. You don't want that to happen, but since we're taking the heads off, we don't have to do that because we're going to be able to see into the cylinder anyway. So these valve covers here need to come off. These are held on by 4 8mm bolts. And so I'm just going to undo them here. Should be able to pull this off. It's not too bad. Pretty good. We've got the valve covers off. We're going to go ahead and undo the rocker arms here and pull the rockers need to come out with the rocker arm, and then we also got to pull the push rods too because we're going to swap that stuff over to the new heads. So just going to start undoing these. These are 8 mils. And then these push rods, literally just, these are Brian Tooley Racing aftermarket hardened push rods. Good stuff. We want to make sure we transfer these. Should be 8 in total on each side.
I'm gonna follow you so you can see.
Cool. Pull the push rods out. So this stuff actually looks a lot better than I thought it would. So another thing that's connected to the head is the dipstick. I think it's just held on by this one 15mm bolt. So we're gonna have to undo the dipstick real quick. So it's just there. It's not on there very tight. All right, there's that. Oh shoot.
That's how you know it's real, dude.
Now we're moving to basically undoing the power steering bracket from the head on the driver's side. Now this is the thing you always hear about everyone complaining about, because this bracket is held on with 4 15mm bolts that you can only use an open-ended wrench on to get off. and you kind of have to do them a little bit at a time. So this is going to be kind of a tedious process here, but we should be able to get it off. If you want to come down in here, I can kind of show you guys where the bolts are at. So there's one there, and then there's one behind it here, and then there's a third one there, kind of behind the power steering pulley. And then if you look kind of down in there between the two pulleys on this bracket, you can kind of see that fourth one. Those four are connected to the heads, and those are the ones that have to come off. So let's try it. So we finally got the power steering bracket off after probably about an hour. ls1howto.com says it should take 10 minutes. I don't know who's working on that or how they did that, because this is a proper pain in the you know what. But I guess maybe if you took the water pump off and make it a little bit easier. I didn't want to do that, so we were literally turning that bolt probably a millisecond or like a milliturn at a time. And also taking the reservoir off could be easier too, because if you can get this top bolt off here, that bolt down there would probably be a lot easier to take off, because you can't really turn it that much and it's really hard to get to. But we were able to break it loose, and then wiggling the bracket a little bit, we were able to get it off. So the bracket's undone. The final thing that we have to do is undo the headers, turn them out of the way, and then we should be able to just undo the bolts for the heads, and we should be able to lift the heads right out. So we're gonna do the headers now.
Oh, that's sick. It actually ratchets?
Yeah.
So it is like literally like a regular thing.
That's a lifesaver, dude.
God, those JDM angles.
That gas smells nasty, dude. Now that we've undone the headers and we've rotated them out of the way, it's time to finally undo the bolts for the heads. Now, these things are torqued really tight, so you're probably going to get like a breaker bar. I don't have a breaker bar, so I just put a extension on my jack handle on my ratchet wrench, and I was able to break that first one loose. So the first one is loose, and then you just kind of have to break them all loose, and then once those bolts come out, the head should be free and you should be able to just lift it right out. So right now I just broke this one loose, and you can kind of see I have aftermarket ARP bolts on mine because the heads have been replaced. So there's one bolt out. Things are freaking long.
Yeah.
This one. Now you probably want to try to put these back where they came out from too. So we've undone all the bolts. We left the center ones in because there's a washer on them, and I don't want that washer to kind of fall off and get lost. So everything's undone. We're gonna go ahead and lift the head out of here. At this part, there's gonna be a lot of coolant that kind of falls out of the head, so just be aware of that. Like a lot, Jesus. So guys, one thing we learned was to take the bolts out before you try to pull the head out. Don't try to pull the head out with the bolts in, because the bolts like to get caught on like the head gasket and other holes that the block has. So we pull all the bolts out of this side. You might even actually pull out the spark plugs as well, because sometimes those will get caught on the headers. If you have stock headers, this shouldn't be a big deal because they're two pieces and you can just pull it all out, but I don't. So we're gonna try to slide this forward, just get the spark plugs underneath the headers and then pull up. So here we go. There goes all the coolant.
The Corvette wins again, dude.
Oh, there it is. So guys, I think that's going to do it for this video. We've got it fully disassembled, and it's about midnight now, so I think we're going to call it a night. We're going to continue this tomorrow with putting it back together. One thing I forgot to mention was there's a little coolant crossover pipe on the heads that comes off, 2 10mm bolts. That's one thing I forgot to mention. Then also, before we put this all back together, we got to replace these bolts on the valley cover because the new intake manifold has smaller heads on the bolts so that it can fit flush. So that's something we're gonna have to do. I'm just gonna clean the coolant out of these out of the cylinders here, and then we're gonna wrap this video up. But thanks for watching, guys. Please comment, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.